Well, hello there, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, crypto nerds of all ages. Guess what time it is? It's that time. You know who I am. I'm Monty Allen, the real Monty Allen, and I am your crypto nerd.
And hey, everybody, I'm Cooper Daniels from The Recoup, and I'm a guy that knows a little about a lot. Yep, that's what I say. And so we're here today for our lunch break roundtable, and we've got a bunch of great people. Thank you so much for coming. And I guess we'll just go around and have everybody introduce themselves. And, the topic of today is mass adoption. So if you could address that, and let's just get started.
Let's do some fancy graphics and then pick a person to go first.
Okay, cool. All right, so let's start with...
That is fancy.
It wasn't that fancy. Let's start with Ninor Mansur from Arlington Capital.
Thanks. So I'm Ninor Mansur. I'm a partner at Arlington Capital. We launched the Arlington Algorand Growth Fund about 2 months ago. We've been involved in the Algorand ecosystem from 2018. So we're really excited about Algorand as an ecosystem, as a community, and happy to be here today.
Excellent. Cool. So in your mind, what do you think is needed for mass adoption? What is the most important thing that's needed? What's that milestone?
Well, the way I see it is Algorand is probably the only blockchain with the technical architecture that can scale to encompass like a global financial system, in the sense that with Algorand, technically, as the number of users grow on the network, the number of securers and validators on the network can grow with it sort of commensurately. With other POS chains, bonded POS chains specifically, you could have 10,000 nodes, but if you have 1 billion or 2 billion people on that chain, then it's that ratio between your securers and your users starts to go down. So I think from the groundwork, Algorand has built out the technical infrastructure that allows it to scale to mass adoption and allows it to sort of secure global value, right? So then the question is, how do you bring users in? I think within crypto now, the game is very isolated. It's very it's very crypto centric. So you obviously see this across blockchains. There's mercenary capital that's moving from Ethereum to Avalanche to Solana to blah blah blah, whatever blockchain ecosystem is out there, and they're sort of chasing internal sort of DeFi yields. Now, I think the trigger for mass adoption is when can you bring on a certain group of people that aren't crypto but somehow integrate with the Algorand ecosystem natively. I think because of the technical architecture of Algorand, it can do that. And we're starting to see some elements of that, right? So, it was just yesterday that El Salvador there was the announcement that Algorand will be used as the base for El Salvador's blockchain infrastructure. In terms of land registries, a lot of their internal documentation, notarization, and whatnot. So already you're starting to see elements of sort of the real world starting to integrate with Algorand. And once that sort of coalesces, I think that will be a trigger for mass adoption. When Algorand as a sort of scalable architecture begins to integrate with like high throughput use cases from the real world, you introduce a totally new set of users, right? And then once you bring those users in, what can they do, right? They can interact with Algorand's DeFi ecosystem, which is sort of in its very early stages, but there's a lot of projects building there. They can do other things. So I think that's probably one of the biggest triggers for mass adoption, is trying to figure out, how we can bring users that aren't familiar with blockchain and cryptocurrency ecosystem into the ecosystem, and sort of escape this like idea of mercenary traders and mercenary capital.
So current use cases that people don't really care if it's blockchain or not, but blockchain would make it better. Did I summarize correctly there?
Well, yeah, I mean, blockchain is just a system for sort of distributed trust, and the more it can scale within society, the more you can apply it, to things that require trust, right? So, exactly.
Yep, I love it. Okay, good perspective there. I'm going to tap Chris, because I know Chris has strong feelings on this, and I think he's also of the mindset that I've heard him say many times that, hey, don't bring him any project that is just X but with blockchain, because he's a strong proponent of the technology itself just being integrated and just in and of itself being better, not a replacement for something.
Yeah. Okay. So yes, I have strong opinions. I think pretty much everybody here has heard my strong opinions on things. This is one of the strong opinions that I have, is that you're spot on, because you've heard me say it. Nobody cares about blockchain. People care about what blockchain gives you. I think that there's enough pain in the world that can be fixed with blockchain, but people don't care about how you're going to fix it. They care about how, or that you do actually fix it. So the trigger that's going to be to make blockchain mainstream is to make it seamless, is make it so that there's, a company has no idea that they're using blockchain, but they're using blockchain. Mm-hmm. So how does that happen? It's not going to happen with a few thousand developers. It's just not. What is going to require for blockchain to be completely throughout as big, or if not bigger than the internet, which is, I believe, we probably all believe that's going to happen, is that developers need to be able to build on it as easy as it is to build on the internet. So the way that blockchain becomes adopted by the masses is by being adopted by the masses of developers, so that they can build things, throw spaghetti at the wall, come up with ideas that this group here isn't innovative enough to think of. And that is when you see, when blockchain becomes boring, that's when it's going to be a mainstream. By the way, I didn't introduce myself. I'm Chris, everybody. So who am I? So I'm the CEO of a company called Reach. What we have done, which is maybe why I'm a little biased about how blockchain becomes mainstream, is we have made blockchain development easy and safe. We would say that we've made blockchain development as easy as building on the actual internet. What we've done is we've provided a high level programming language that is similar to JavaScript. And better yet, what we've done is through the compilation process, through the building process, we mathematically guarantee that the code will do exactly as you intend. This is not, we didn't build a suite of tests. We actually do the math for you to prove that the code will do exactly as you intend. And and we know that it's working because we have almost 2,300 developers building applications, and we're 2,300 is not tens of millions, but we're on pace to bring all of the developers in the world into building blockchain applications.
Very, very well said. Chris and I actually speak. I do mostly listening on Sundays. So we have a like an Algorand Twitter space. So I've heard Chris speak for I don't know, an hour and a half on a Sunday afternoon. Just brilliant stuff. So, and you've got a ton of good projects coming out. So I would encourage folks to follow everybody that's in this room. But I appreciate your insight there on mass adoption.
I really appreciate it.
We can get the perspective of one of these real estate folks here. So maybe Matthew.
Yes. Well, hello everyone. I'm Matthew Sullivan. I'm the founder and chief exec of Quantum RE. And what we do is we solve a number of problems, primarily for homeowners. And we help homeowners unlock some of the equity in their homes without taking on more debt. And for investors, we enable them to build, model, manage, and trade portfolios of the equity in single-family homes. Now, all of that is built around the Algorand blockchain. So we have a business that's very much in technology and real estate and blockchain. So we're at the middle of those sort of three circles. And I've been listening with real interest about your responses to mass adoption, because I think Chris said something really interesting, which was that when blockchain is boring, that's when you're on the way to mass adoption. And I think that's the critical thing, because the focus has to be on what is the problem that you're solving? What is the solution that you're delivering to people? Because technology on its own is about as interesting as toast, frankly. dry toast. And to get a mass population excited about something that they can't understand is probably quite difficult. So I think there's a number of things that we need to do. First of all, blockchain itself and the technology has to take a back seat. You know, it has to be powered by blockchain, but no one really cares if it's powered by blockchain. All people care about is what does it do for them? So if we can use blockchain technologies to do things that we couldn't do before, and I really believe that what we're doing with real estate would have been really, really difficult and hugely expensive if we were to use traditional technologies. And it wouldn't have anything like the exciting flight path that I think that it has now. So for the consumer, for the mass market, it's got to be simple to use. It's got to be intuitive. And people don't really need to know what's behind the scenes, as long as it works and it delivers a solution and gets them excited about what you're delivering. And I think if we can start checking those boxes, then we know we're on the way to something that's really rather exciting.
I'm sensing a common theme here. You know, we don't really care how the wizard gets stuff done. As long as you can stay behind the curtain and as long as stuff gets done, it's all right. It's still magic.
Yes, but that stuff has to be valuable stuff as well. We're not, we mustn't just search around for something that,
Right.
you know, is an okay thing, because all that happens is you're just treading water, and there's no growth either, you know, in the technology or in the economy. But to be able to use technologies that unlock markets, and there's a lot of talk, which I really firmly believe in, that you know, the ability to use blockchain technologies to fractionalize and trade previously illiquid assets, that is something that's very exciting. So the critical thing is whatever you deliver using blockchain, you know, it has to have marketable value, and that's the same no matter what the technology is. I mean, when the first person invented clockwork, you know, it had to have an application, otherwise it would have, you know, it wouldn't have gone anywhere.
Are the early users now, so Quantum RE, are the early users now geeked that there's blockchain somehow incorporated, or to them does it not really matter because they're extracting equity from their home?
It's both, and we have taken lots of steps to make it as the blockchain and the technology side as invisible as possible to the homeowner who wants to unlock their equity. So we've tried to strip out every possible phrase or term that could confuse people, because people that are homeowners that want to unlock their equity are homeowners that want to unlock their equity. That's it. There's, you know, they're not interested in how it works. All they're interested in is how do I do this? Because most people are doing it for reasons where, you know, they may be forced, or they may be looking at our solutions as a viable alternative to a loan. They're not coming because of the technology. So we are very careful to make sure that we don't introduce anything that could confuse them, and we don't need to, because they don't need to know how you know, our programs and our technology works from a technology perspective. On the other side, however, on the trading platform side, there's a lot of interest from the blockchain and the crypto community because of the way that we're using Algorand in particular, and the net result of that, which is the ability to take a previously untapped $23 trillion asset class and make it accessible, investable, and tradable. So on the other side, the language that we use in our trading platform is much more akin to language that you would see on other exchanges. And I think it's safer there because people are expecting to get under the hood and have a little bit more detail, because their motivation for being there is very different.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think you said best. So homeowners, they don't care how they get their equity or their cash; they just want to make sure that they get it. So that's a good fair point. Coop, I just kind of took over here. I hope you don't mind. I'm gonna.
No, you're good. Yeah, keep it going. I'm listening.
All right. So I know Nadeem joined us late, but I want to get his perspective on mass adoption because his business is completely different. His business is dependent on people who know and are actively using blockchain, and they care about, making sure that blockchain and cryptocurrency is used. So your target market is different, and I'm wondering what your perspective is for mass adoption. A currency used to buy everyday goods and services. What's the trigger there?
Sure, yeah. And yeah, apologies, I was a bit occupied for joining late, and good to see you all. Pleasure to be here. And Monty, that's very right. So we are seeing now an increased interest and uptake in people who want to, let's say, buy crypto or transact in crypto or accept crypto as payments. So we are catering to those target base or users. And our business model is that if you want to create your first Bitcoin wallet, you go to PayScript, sign up, and we created hosted wallets for you. You don't have to deal with security because we manage that overhead with us, and you can start your crypto journey easily and fast. Once you mature in your journey, you can go towards a hardware ledger or basically have more sophisticated options for your crypto storage. But if you want to start your journey, we are providing the fastest and easiest way to start your journey. Now, there are a lot of merchants as well who want to start accepting cryptocurrencies, particularly the stable coins, because they cater to global merchants. So let's say someone in Africa wants to start selling their mass produces or coffee or any other goods and services, then they can start collecting stablecoin payments and be able to run their business through cryptocurrencies. That's very key in terms of their global expansion per se, and for their proliferation and their success. So crypto is actually enabling merchants and users to have that global reach when it comes to payments, because accepting payments is one of the major pain points of several merchants. Not more so in well-developed countries, because you have banking facilities and you have all the tools at hand, but countries which are developing, crypto is giving them a way to and giving them a level playing field. So in this way, crypto and blockchain technology is acting as an enabler, giving them a level playing field to their global competitors.
Excellent. All right, so a completely different perspective. We're gonna complete the wheelhouse here. Michael, I know you were first in, but I'm gonna save you for last, just so you know. So I'm gonna ask Omar to go ahead of you, and then you got a few more minutes to prep up your answer here. So, all right, Omar from Arrington, but give us your perspective there. And I imagine you see things from like 1,000-foot level, because you've got your influence on so many different projects, huh?
That's right. First, let me just say it's nice to be here with everyone. I'm Omar from Arrington Capital. I sort of lead the research on the ecosystems and the Algorand side and so on. A few things I want to say about mass adoption. First, I completely echo the sentiment of this idea that Matthew mentioned, that a good piece of technology doesn't need advertisement. It doesn't need a use case for people to promote. It sort of naturally comes onto the scene because it provides something of value that wasn't already existing, right? If we think about how we use our mobile phones today, how we use email, these things, don't need a constant support from the community to outline how useful they are. And the worst thing you can do to a developing or an emerging piece of technology is to find a use case for it that is very niche and only incrementally improves something at the expense of, very high complexity or very high cost. This is how you relegate a piece of technology to the back room for a decade. What you should instead be focusing on is not how it, the particular intricacies, the details of how it functions, but what it enables that you absolutely could not do before. That answers, or tries to answer the question of blockchain mass adoption. But what about Algorand, or what about any other ecosystem? And the answer follows the same reasoning. What does a particular instance of that, a protocol, a blockchain, a consensus mechanism, whatever, what does that enable that others do not? And secondly, what does mass adoption look like to begin with? Because I think sometimes we assume that mass adoption for something like Bitcoin looks the same as mass adoption for Ethereum, looks the same as mass adoption for Algorand. And we actually think that that's not true. We actually think that each different blockchain will serve a completely different purpose, and they can live together. And so when we talk about mass adoption, we're really talking about mass adoption of crypto assets and not mass adoption of just crypto money.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Okay. In similar vein, so is mass adoption more about the number of users and number of wallets and maybe microtransactions, number of transactions, or is it more about the volume? And so we should look to, ISDA or, real estate transactions where we're dealing with much larger volume. Which one really is mass adoption? I mean, you got an opinion one way or the other?
Sure. Like I said, it depends completely on the application. When we're talking about, let's say, financial instruments, typically people like to look at how much volume they facilitate. That's when we talk about something like, a piece of software that's used, it's usually the number of developers that are working on it or the number of daily active users, right? So it really does depend on the application. And I like to highlight the idea that, again, just talking about currency or money is only a small subset of an entire world of crypto assets. So when we think about it that way, we'll see analogs in what we already do, but this sort of allows us to think in a much broader regime as opposed to just focusing on how do I use this for payments? How do I use this for art? I mean, it literally facilitates an entire universe of applications.
Yeah. So the gamut is so wide. It's amazing. I'm lucky that we've got so many people from different industries here. Michael, as I warned you, I saved you for last year as far as the industry guests go. So from your perspective, from Vesta Equity's perspective, what does mass adoption look like for you? And does that impact your business really? You're kind of a niche there that's a little different.
Well, I wouldn't say we're a niche. We're addressing very similar problems that Quantum is addressing, right? We're taking a look at the home equity market and the home equity financing market, and we're saying, how do you unbundle this? It hasn't changed in over 100 years. How do you unbundle this and make it easy for someone to access the equity in their home without either selling the property or going into debt? Those aren't great options for people right now. So from our perspective, mass adoption, what does that mean? Well, it means that people are comfortable accessing a solution that is easy for them to use. It's click and point type of onboarding, click and point type of utilities in order to access the equity in their home. But there's no complications. There's no talk of blockchain in the conversation we're having with our users because they don't care. You don't care there's 5G in your phone. You just care your phone works. And we've taken that approach. If you look at the UIs and how we built out Best Equity, there's no talk of blockchain at all. It's just going to be used. And unfortunately, the education right now with the average consumer is not great when it comes to cryptocurrencies or blockchain. They just hear a lot of the hype in the media and they think, oh, those cryptocurrencies, it's just all speculation. We prefer to have the conversation about blockchain technology. That's the underwriting technology that we're all talking about here, and how it, what it produces and what comes out of it is a separate issue. But it's really about that underlying technology and just building out use cases using blockchain technology. Which one you use and which one you decide to use as part of your solution, that's really up to the company. And some companies have very specific reasons why they're using specific solutions. But for us, it's really about the blockchain. It's about how we're applying it. It's about making sure it works. And from the user's perspective, both our investors, our property investors, as well as our homeowners and property owners, it's a seamless, easy process for them to get onboarded, use the platform, and execute on the platform. And they don't even know they're using blockchain.
So the end user, I don't think would know very much, right? I think similar, the end users, they shouldn't know. But I'm wondering, investors, like when you first came up with the idea and you had your pitch deck, or even now, if you get investors because you're still gathering investors, do they ask the question why blockchain, or are they asking the question which blockchain? And I think there's a subtle shift there, right?
Yeah, some do. I mean, if you've got your traditional venture capital firms, they may ask you, why are you doing it on blockchain? Can you do it without blockchain? We obviously have our response for that. when you start talking to more blockchain orientated venture capital firms, that start asking, okay, why Algorand over Ethereum, which you obviously have to have your answers for them as well. Then you get some VCs who are so focused on Ethereum, they don't even want to talk to you because you're on Algorand. You're like you're on another planet, another world. We don't think Algorand's going to work. We're all about Ethereum. They're the fanboys. So it really depends on who you're having conversations with. We have angel investors in our business. They don't care that we're using blockchain. They just love the idea and they see the potential. It's a massive market worth trillions of dollars, and they're on board. They're not interested in what's under the hood or who's behind the curtain from a technology perspective.
Okay, beautiful. All right, so we made the first round in record time. We made it in about 30 minutes, so round 2 is coming up. So round 2, we've got a couple of other influencers in here and a couple of folks who can ask some questions. We're going to take some questions from audience as well. And I know that Ibu from ALGO HQ, I don't know, Ibu, like you're enough of an influencer yourself. You can answer the question, but I think you also had some other questions for somebody else, and you can pick someone, and I'll put them up on the stage there.
Okay. Hi, everyone. I know some of you, but just to introduce myself, my name's Ibu. I run this page on Twitter and TikTok called AlGo HQ, where basically I take things in the Algorand ecosystem that are more complex, locked away in documents, and break them down into quick and palatable videos so people can just learn about this tech and, check out the page if you want to check it out. My question was, since a lot of you in this room are saying that you don't advertise blockchain as the big thing with your tech, but the new power to leverage the blockchain is what enables the tech. So how do you go to somebody who's trying to use your platform and explain to them why this new iteration of it is more powerful and more efficient and more cost effective without talking about blockchain?
Anybody want to take that one, or was that for somebody in particular?
It was for anybody really, but I guess mostly the real estate fellas in here.
Okay.
Sure. Can I leap in there? So I just needed a few seconds to sort of formulate an answer. Yes,
Sure.
because it's a good question. Again, I think really because we're in blockchain and we're all excited about blockchain, we're presupposing that everyone else shares our same views. And we're presupposing that people that want to invest in real estate, we're suggesting that actually you're not really interested in the real estate side or the investment or the returns or access to a new asset. What you're really interested in is how we built this thing. And in fact, that's just not the case. So, and again, I come back to a point that, one of you made earlier, which is that when you talk about, I think it was Michael made earlier, that when you have a mobile phone, you don't talk about the technology behind it. You don't talk about, how it's built or the frequencies that it uses or, which generation of, internet. It's just irrelevant. You talk about the phone and how that's useful for you. And so I think we are excited to be able to tap into a new technology. However, we're also really excited to be able to deliver this new investment opportunity that unlocks a previously untapped multi-trillion-dollar asset class. And that's where the game is. It's not how we've done it. It's like we pat ourselves on the back for doing it. We're using this really cool technology, but the reason that we're excited is because this technology allows us to do it. And guess what? It works. It's scalable. It's reliable. You can trust it. And so those are the things that we're focusing on. And I think the time will come quite soon where people really are not that interested and don't care what it's built on. So I hope that answers your question. I felt I was rambling there slightly. Sorry.
No, yeah, I get
right.
what you mean.
Yeah, I mean, I mirror that sentiment because that just makes a lot of sense, right? People don't care how it works, just that it works. And at the end of the day, we haven't had one property owner ask us, how is this working? Where their concern is this secure? Is it safe? Am I still going to have, residential rights to my home? Like, what does this mean? This
exactly. Those are the questions, aren't they? Is it safe? Does it work? Is it secure? Yeah. Can I trust it?
Exactly. Am I going to get hacked?
Yes, exactly.
You're not going to get hacked. Don't worry. those are the questions they're asking. And I find if you sort of evolve the conversation towards the blockchain, you start getting into those elements of it, it just confuses people because they're not equipped to understand the technology because they haven't made an investment in learning about it, because that's not what they're interested in. They're interested in, can I access the equity in my home and not go to a bloody bank again and have them, charge excessive amounts of interest, compound it. I'm a slave to the bank for the next 20 years. People don't want that anymore. And they understand these banks are making incredible amounts of money on them, and it's inequitable. And so we're trying to address that and say, this new technology enables that, but people they're not interested in knowing that. They're just interested in knowing, can I do it? And is it safe? Am I going to get kicked out of my home in 5 years?
Right. Yeah. What happens if, if I pass away, or if I try and sell my house, or, a bunch of those questions, and they have nothing to do with blockchain. Understood.
Yeah. It's the real world issues they're dealing with.
I think Nadim's got a kind of an interesting perspective on that as well, because his business model is completely different, right? Different markets.
Yeah, so for payments, it's actually very straightforward, right? We do get asked a lot about this question, that why blockchain and why crypto in particular, or why digital assets in particular. Most of these companies which ask these questions are either financial institutions or payments company, and the answer is very straightforward. From a retail point of view, let's say if I want to send money from Australia to India, then the forex amount that a bank charges is around $20 to $30 Aussie dollars. So that's around about 15 to 20 US dollars. And if I send a stablecoin payment, let's say I use USDCA on Algorand, then the cost is just literally less than a cent or a cent. So there are very clear benefits of using crypto stablecoin payments, which makes the conversation easier. And then the next discussion that we generally have about is why use digital assets in general. Let's say how a bank can basically improvise their internal systems using blockchain technology and let's say Algorand technology, why they should use it. So the answers to that we generally give is, one, it is on an immutable ledger and it is easily auditable. So these qualities are very useful when it comes to payments because there are so many parties involved. When the money flows from one bank or one institution to another, the internal reconciliation is a mess. With the immutable record, any member of the ecosystem is able to trace the payment, or if anything bad happens, if there are any bad actors, exactly at the point of the chain where the mess happened. So these are some very powerful capabilities that blockchain technology in general brings. And with Algorand, the cost of the transactions are very less. So they're not giving away something in exchange for a better technology. So it's a win-win for financial institutions, payment companies. So yeah, that's my take on that question.
Very great question from Ibu. I would like to give Andrew and Coop. I know I've kind of dominated the questions here, but I know you two are probably have some questions as well.
Well, Ninor sort of brought it up, but the news of the day is El Salvador and them using Algorand, leveraging Algorand blockchain. And like Omar was talking, it's not just payments. And obviously El Salvador doesn't have a currency to be a central bank digital currency. So I was just wondering what you guys think about the announcement yesterday, what that means, government adoption. There's paranoia also out there in the crypto space about governments adopting and central bank digital currencies, and just if anybody had any thoughts about that. Maybe the Arlington Capital guys can kick it off.
Omar, when do you want to take that?
Well, I think the adoption of central bank digital currencies, whether you agree with them, say from a moral ethical perspective, I think it's inevitable. There will be at some point a central bank digital currency. It's probably the next phase of fiat. Sort of as a lot of our systems starts to digitize and we transition over to the accounting system, different type of variants, etc. The question is, at what point, sure, there are a lot of drawbacks and whatnot to this type of technology, but there's probably also a lot of benefits. You start to disintermediate a lot of the smaller banking institutions. You start to give people banking for banks that they have, in their wallet directly, personally. But the broader question on sort of the El Salvador adoption, I think it's just a small step. It's a in my view, it's a validation of our thesis for Algorand as a chain that can handle these kinds of national use cases. Just again, we reiterated this in a report that we released, a few months ago. But the idea that Algorand can scale to many millions and billions of people and maintain its decentralization lends it to the fact that it can be used in such use cases. And I think this is just a sort of a step of validation. And we'll probably see, other things happen in the future. I mean, this could be a catalyst for other countries to adopt Algorand, maybe in a greater sense. But again, it's just the stepping stone, right? If you imagine the entire ecosystem of different blockchains out there, each with their own technical architectures, can they support a government in its sort of mass distributed requirements?
Yeah,
I don't know.
Somebody had to go first. Everybody's watching now.
Well, exactly. And why have they gone for Algorand, right? I mean, we have a lot of reasons why we think so, but obviously Algorand's been live for almost 2.5 years. It's never gone down. The system itself is, it's fast, it's secure, it's decentralized. So you combine all these aspects together, and it's sort of an inevitability, right?
Excellent. All right. I think that your perspective is unique because we've got like the importance of accelerators and investments, and just the from a dollar's point, like the incentives that you are giving to people to be creative is phenomenal. I want to bring Chris up here because I really think that maybe this is going to happen in stages. And before we have mass adoption from the public, from the end consumer, we need mass adoption by developers, right? And I love the accelerators and stuff that you're doing there, but I think Chris probably has a unique perspective on this that he'd love to share with us, because that's what he's trying to do.
Yeah, I mean, like, I love people getting excited about blockchain and about the potential of blockchain, but if there's nobody to build it, it'll never happen. And that's like I mean, I've already said this, but I'll say it again, is that you can have the best idea in the world, but if you don't have the tools to actually build it, it'll never happen. So our main focus is to, the millions and millions of developers in the world that have the ability to code, to be able to actually what I like to say is that blockchain will become mainstream when blockchain development is so easy. People are building fart apps on the blockchain because it's one of those things where it's a stupid application, but people are still launching it because it takes no time and effort to actually do. But yeah, I mean, like I love the idea about the CBDCs and the governance adoption. El Salvador's great news. I can't wait to hear more information about exactly how they're going to implement it. But you need to make sure that it's secure, and it's going to take time, and the tools need to be there to make sure that they can get to their users. And so once again, like everybody here has said, is you need to make sure that blockchain is boring, so that you don't lead with this is X application on the blockchain, because nobody cares. So yeah.
I love it. So just so you know, when I very first started my crypto journey, I had a full beard, and my logo still has the beard on it. But then I saw your picture, and I had to shave because I was beard shaved. So
I mean, what I'm doing here, so I live in Boston, and the Red Sox wouldn't cut their beard until they won the World Series. I'm doing the same thing. I'm not cutting my beard until blockchain becomes mainstream. So
I love it. Okay,
right,
way to circle that back around and reel it back in. I appreciate it. All right, I know Eva's got another question here, so fire away.
Yeah, so I guess, again, directed at anybody who wants to jump in, but with the Algorand governance system coming up, where the proportion of a party's vote is directly correlated to their ALGO holdings, do you think an entity like the El Salvadorian government, or even Arrington themselves, or other venture capitalists, institutions, or governments that want to get involved in Algorand are going to have to accumulate a large pool of algos to have a significant influence on the voting and direction of the chain? Anybody want to jump in on that question?
I definitely don't want to touch that one. Michael seems game though. All right.
No, I'm not game. I said you need someone from Algorand to answer that question.
Yeah. I didn't want to touch that one.
Or those guys. Yeah.
Omar or Ninor, do you have any thoughts about that? Do you think large scale entities will have to accumulate algos to have an influence on the direction? If they're using the chain, they're going to have to choose or have a say in the direction that it goes and how it upgrades over the next 5-10 years?
Well, I think it remains to be seen what kind of votes will be, or what kind of proposals will be pushed through the governance system. I mean, from a fundamental level, you have, obviously one algo is one vote in sort of a consensus mechanism. So you can never control that as a large institution, regardless of who you are. You can obviously accumulate a lot of algo coins and then have a large sort of voting influence, in the consensus, but you can't influence that directly. Now, the move to this system, I think, will probably drive a lot more participation, sort of actively in the community in the direction of it. I mean, sure, funds like us will obviously take part in the governance structure. We obviously hold a lot of algos, so we'll be, trying to, make as informed decisions as we can relating to the sort of improvements in the network in the future. I mean, if Algorand, slowly becomes more integrated, throughout the world, then it becomes, in the best interest of someone to have a particular voice and have a particular vote in where the blockchain goes from there, right? And again, it sort of remains to be seen what kind of proposals will go through that governance process, whether there'll be core protocol upgrades, whether there'll be sort of network parameters, or where the Algorand team focuses their efforts. I'm not sure. That's sort of open.
Yeah, I'd like to kind of like ask a question to clarify the question. Really, are you worried that these large entities will take up too big of a proportion of everything and then kind of decide everything, or are you wondering, with the governance and what proposals are happening, will this increase the price of the actual algo because there is a fixed supply?
More of the second question, but not really about like price action, because as related to the first question you asked, as a large entity, if they want to have a big stake, it'll naturally increase scarcity of the asset as they try to accumulate it. So either way, I mean, I think we're all probably pretty bullish on Algorand here, but it's not about that. It's more about, I don't think any one group could buy enough algos to control the whole thing. And if they could, it would go against the purpose of the decentralized protocol, and they would just own the whole chain, but wouldn't know what to do with it. So I guess my question was, are larger entities just looking at this governance system that's about to launch and considering how are we going to get involved, and do we want to have like a big vote or not? Is really more of what it was about.
Yeah, I think that's this is not an Algorand specific problem. This is just governance on blockchain problem. And I don't think anybody's actually truly know where that's going to go yet. But I would have to believe that people that are invested want to say. So yeah, but we could be wrong. I mean, like we talk about all the time in other DAOs and everything where people aren't voting that have a large stake. So things are passing without people really truly, the people that actually do have a big stake don't actually have a say. So we'll find out. I think I'm not even sure if the actual all of the actual rules of governance actually has been released yet. Has it been? Does anybody know?
No, I think they're going more. So September 9th, they're supposed to have some more information that's coming out. So hopefully we'll be able to solve some of those questions. And really, I kind of want to touch base on that too. I think that if, an entity did want to have control over a blockchain, I think that would really, make it unattractive to whether it be developers or other users of that. If someone, just dominated the holdings and the votes and the direction of the blockchain, I think really, having everyone's input is what's important, not just to Algorand, but to blockchain as a whole. And I think that's really where you'll see the success in projects that allow for that.
Yeah, but it becomes harder and harder for a single entity to buy it all because of the scarcity and the limited supplies. Because the more tokens somebody buys, the higher the price gets. So you get to a point where And then because of game theory, you start if you hit a tipping point, then the actual value starts going down, and then you just lost all your money.
Yeah.
Like this is like we've seen this many time and time again with just blockchain is like game theory prevents the centralization of a decentralized thing.
Well, I mean, what I'd also say is if you compare it to something like Bitcoin, right? There's strategic accumulation of Bitcoin by corporations. You know, who knows if there's nation states accumulating in the background. But the idea there is that they believe in the importance of the Bitcoin network. They're obviously making El Salvador is making a huge bet on Bitcoin, like a global sovereign reserve currency. Now, if you see something similar play out with, say, the Algorand network, if Algorand continues to gain adoption, nationally, then there would be some point where, strategically, parties that are using the Algorand network want to have, a certain ownership of Algo. I would assume they'd want to have a certain ownership of Algo token so they can participate in consensus. Because Algorand incentives aren't, like, right now, there are no real Algorand incentives. Participation rewards go equally to everyone, right? So in essence, there's no dilution, compared to, like, say, a stake system, like a bundled proof stake system. So there's no real incentive beyond wanting to have influence on the network to own the Algo coin, right? In a very similar way to on Bitcoin, you don't get paid to run a Bitcoin full node, right? You run it because you own Bitcoin and you want to make sure that you own that Bitcoin and it's on the ledger, right? So it's a very similar dynamic here.
I agree there. We've got about 3.5 more minutes here. Before it gets too late, I do want to just say a big thanks to Andrew here, who organized a ton of this stuff. He's part of the Algonauts and really kind of coordinated all this from start to finish. Coop and I were brought in really just because Coop's funny and he asks the good questions and I think I just had the cool software. So I appreciate Andrew, everything that you did and kind of pulling all of this together. And I've got just one more idea that I want to throw out there. And we've kind of said that, we want blockchain to be boring or, to be behind the scenes or invisible. And I think from that perspective, we're onto something. But I also wonder how much of the mass adoption is going to come from solving problems that we didn't know existed, or that people just thought, hey, you know what, like this, we've always done it this way, the banking industry, for instance, or the real estate market, or, all of these things. And I wish we had somebody from, some of the DeFi stuff or AlgoFi or something like that to address some of those aspects. But does anybody want to expand on that? I mean, is it
Yeah, I will.
Go for it.
My answer is relatively all of them. Like if you look at the grand scheme of things, things that will happen on blockchain, we haven't even scratched the surface. Like it's to the point of what most of people have been doing so far has been looking at the real world and saying, how can we optimize the real world on the blockchain? And that is boring, not in the good boring way that we're talking about blockchain, but that to me doesn't get me out of bed. What gets me out of bed is when people start building things because blockchain creates entire new markets. And that is what is going to really kind of revolutionize just the world. Because people are if you look at it, people are saying, okay, I want an exchange, but now I want an exchange on blockchain. I want a lending, but now I want it on a blockchain. I want supply chain, now I want it on blockchain. This happens over and over and over again. What is really exciting is when people create brand new industries that never existed before, and that is what's going to take blockchain into the future.
Yeah,
well
Chris,
said.
I agree. But I think those first things have to happen before you get to that stage.
Boring though.
It's boring. But boring drives the economy right now.
Sure.
And I agree with you. I think what you're doing makes a lot of sense in terms of getting mass adoption on the coding side of the spectrum and making it easy for programmers to create things, because if it's not, these new innovative things won't happen. So I think kudos to you.
Beautiful.
Well, kudos to you to doing what you're doing to fund everything. So thanks for keeping my bills paid.
All right, Coop, any last words?
No, kudos to all of you, So thank you so much for coming and talking to us.
Yep, I wanted just to say thank you to everyone for being a part of AlgoFest 2021. Hopefully we can have some of you guys back on for some AMAs in the future over in the Algonauts official Discord. It's been a really great time, and actually, you know, a little bit of a surprise how well this has turned out so far. So
I agree. All right. Well, thanks to all the guests today. Replays will be available on Coop's channel and my channel. So if you individual, you want to retweet or use that for other marketing purposes, what have you, that'll be published out there. You can feel free to clip and do what you need to do. And thank you all for being here. Looking forward to AlgoFest 2022 already. So, all right, everybody. Enjoy the rest of AlgoFest. I hope you watch some more.
Yep. See you guys.
Thanks
Thanks, guys.